She let him move in after 9 days. Her friends warned her. 6 months later, she couldn't remember the last time she'd made a decision without checking with him first. This is how it happens. Not with a slap, not with a threat, but with a script. And once you see the script, you'll never stop noticing it. Manipulation isn't magic and it isn't luck. It's a set of repeatable psychological levers, the same dozen or so moves showing up in cult recruitment, abusive relationships, boardroom politics, cons, and interrogation rooms. Psychologists have studied them for decades. Con artists have used them for centuries. Today we're breaking down the real techniques, the real cases, and the real damage, so you can spot them before they spot you. It starts with a flood. Constant texting. Grand gestures. I've never felt this way about anyone. Within weeks, sometimes days, you're told you're soulmates. Psychologists call it love bombing, an overwhelming, accelerated dose of affection and attention designed to short-circuit your normal pace of trust. It feels incredible. That's the point. Your brain, flooded with novelty and validation, starts associating this person with euphoria before it's had time to actually evaluate them. Cult recruiters use an identical playbook. New members are showered with hugs, compliments, and instant belonging the moment they walk through the door. A tactic researchers documented as far back as the 1970s unification church recruitment drives, where the technique got its name in the first place. The community that seems to already love you is easier to trust than one that makes you earn it. The tell is speed. Real intimacy is built slowly, tested against real disagreements and real time. Love bombing skips the test. But love bombing alone doesn't trap anyone. It's just the opening move. Once the bond feels secure, the next move is quieter. Distance from everyone else. It rarely looks like a demand. It looks like concern. Your friends don't really get us. Your family's always been controlling. I just want it to be us for a while. Each sentence sounds almost reasonable on its own. Cults formalize this: physical compounds, restricted phone access, us versus the outside world doctrine. Abusive partners do it socially. Guilt trips every time you make plans, jealousy dressed up as devotion, slowly shrinking your world until the manipulator is the only stable reference point left in it. Here's the retention hook. Isolation isn't the scary part. The scary part is what isolation makes possible next. Because once you have no one else to compare notes with, the manipulator gets to define reality for you. Which brings us to the next technique, arguably the most psychologically damaging one on this list. You remember the conversation clearly. He said it. You know he said it. And now he's looking you dead in the eye, telling you that you're imagining things, that you're too sensitive, that you're remembering it wrong again. Gaslighting is the deliberate erosion of someone's trust in their own perception. The term comes from the 1938 stage play Gaslight, where a husband secretly dims the gas-powered lights in his house and then insists his wife is hallucinating when she notices the change, all to convince her she's losing her mind so he can control her. It's rarely one dramatic lie. It's small, repeated denials, of events, of your feelings, of things that were said 5 minutes ago. Each individual denial seems survivable. But stacked over months or years, the victim stops trusting their own memory entirely. And once you can't trust your own mind, you have nowhere left to stand except wherever the manipulator points. Clinicians who work with abuse survivors describe this as one of the hardest patterns to recover from, not because the abuse was necessarily physical, but because it attacks the tool you'd normally use to recognize abuse in the first place, your own judgment. Quick recap before we go further. Love bombing gets you in. Isolation cuts your support system. Gaslighting breaks your trust in your own reality. 3 moves, all designed to work together. Now let's look at how manipulators keep you hooked once you're already in the door. Here's a fact from behavioral psychology that casinos, cults, and abusive partners have all independently discovered. Unpredictable rewards are more addictive than consistent ones. B.F. Skinner proved it with pigeons in the 1950s. Pigeons that got a food pellet every single time they pressed a lever eventually got bored. Pigeons that got a pellet only sometimes, randomly, pressed the lever obsessively, long after the food stopped coming altogether. Psychologists call this a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, and it's the exact same mechanism behind slot machines. Now apply that to a relationship. A manipulator who is cruel every single day is easy to leave. But a manipulator who is cruel, then suddenly loving, then cold again, then affectionate, unpredictably, creates something far stickier. The victim starts chasing the good moments the way a gambler chases a jackpot, convinced that if they just do everything right, the warmth will come back. This is the mechanism behind what trauma researchers call trauma bonding, an intense emotional attachment that forms specifically because of a cycle of abuse and intermittent affection, not despite it. But that wasn't even the most efficient version of this trick. The most efficient version doesn't wait for the victim to mess up. It manufactures the crisis on purpose. Deny. Attack. Reverse victim and offender. Psychologist Jennifer Freyd coined the term in the 1990s to describe a specific defensive maneuver used almost universally by people confronted about wrongdoing. Step 1. Deny it happened. Step 2. Attack the credibility of the person raising the issue. Step 3, the sharpest part, reverse the roles entirely, so that by the end of the conversation, the accuser is somehow apologizing to the accused. I can't believe you'd accuse me of that. You're the one always starting fights. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Studies on Davo have found it's disturbingly effective. Observers who watch a Davo exchange with no other context often rate the actual offender as more sympathetic than the person raising a legitimate complaint. It works because it hijacks a normal, healthy instinct, our discomfort with conflict and our desire to be fair to both sides. Quick bridge here. Everything so far has worked on emotional bonds. But manipulation doesn't need a relationship at all. Some of the most effective techniques work on total strangers, in under 60 seconds. In 1966, psychologists Jonathan Friedman and Scott Fraser ran a study that became a cornerstone of compliance research. Researchers went door to door asking homeowners to put a small sign in their window supporting safe driving. Almost everyone agreed. It was a tiny ask. 2 weeks later, a different researcher came back to the same houses and asked those homeowners to let a large, ugly drive carefully billboard be installed on their front lawn. More than 75% agreed. Compare that to a control group who was asked cold, with no small favor first, fewer than 20% agreed. That's the foot-in-the-door technique. Get a small yes first, and people become dramatically more likely to agree to a much bigger ask later. Because agreeing once creates a self-image of being the kind of person who helps. Salespeople, cult recruiters, and scammers all use it. Can I just get your email for a free sample? Becomes a $2,000 subscription 3 weeks later. There's a mirror image version too, door in the face. Start with an outrageous request you expect to be refused. Can you donate $500? Then follow it immediately with the request you actually wanted. Okay, how about just $20? The second number feels small by comparison, even though $20 was the real target all along. It's the same trick department stores use with a fake original price crossed out next to the sale price. 2 more, back to back, because they're everywhere and they're fast. Social proof. People copy the behavior of others, especially under uncertainty. Over 10,000 people already joined. Fake 5-star reviews. A cult leader surrounded by visibly devoted followers, signaling to newcomers. Everyone else already trusts this, so you should too. Scarcity, only 3 left in stock. This offer ends at midnight. Doors close forever tomorrow. Manufactured urgency shuts down slow, rational thinking and triggers fast, emotional decision-making, because the brain treats loss aversion as more urgent than potential gain. Multi-level marketing recruiters and cult leaders both weaponize this constantly. Join now, or lose your chance at salvation, wealth, or belonging forever. Neither trick requires a relationship. Neither requires more than 30 seconds of your attention. That's what makes them so scalable, and so common online right now, today, in your own inbox. Recap time. We've covered the emotional traps, love bombing, isolation, gaslighting, intermittent reinforcement, Davo, and the fast compliance tricks, foot in the door in the face, social proof, scarcity. Now we're going somewhere darker. The techniques used specifically to make victims stay, and to make outsiders stop asking questions. Triangulation introduces a third person, real or invented, into a two-person dynamic, specifically to create insecurity and competition. My ex never complained about this. Even my mother agrees with me on this one. Everyone at work says you're being difficult. Sometimes the third party doesn't even need to be real. Some manipulators fabricate entire conversations that never happened, just to make the target feel replaceable and unstable. In families, this often shows up as one parent recruiting a child as an ally against the other. In workplaces, a manipulative manager might tell two employees, separately, that the other one is the real problem, keeping both of them competing for approval instead of comparing notes and realizing they're both being managed the same way. The goal is always the same: prevent the people around the manipulator from forming alliances against them. A backhanded compliment, delivered casually, designed to create just enough insecurity to make you seek approval. You're actually really pretty for someone who dresses like that. I'm surprised someone as smart as you believed that. The term entered mainstream use through pickup artist communities in the 2000s, who taught it explicitly as a technique to lower a target's confidence just enough to make the manipulator's approval feel valuable. But the same mechanic shows up far beyond dating, in workplaces, in friendships, anywhere someone benefits from you doubting yourself just a little more than you did 5 minutes ago. It's subtle by design. Called out directly, the manipulator can always retreat to "I was just joking," which is itself another manipulation technique. It even has a name: plausible deniability, keeping every individual comment small enough to defend while the cumulative effect does the real damage. Here's the retention hook for this stretch of the video. Everything we've covered so far explains how people get pulled in. This next one explains why they don't leave, even once they know something is wrong. The sunk cost fallacy is the tendency to keep investing in something specifically because you've already invested so much, even when every rational signal says stop. I've already put 5 years into this relationship. I can't just walk away now. We've already spent this much on the deal. We have to see it through. Manipulators, and cult leaders in particular, exploit this relentlessly. Recruits who've already donated their savings, cut off their families, or dedicated years of unpaid labor to an organization find it psychologically unbearable to admit that investment was a mistake. Admitting it would mean admitting they were wrong for years, not just wrong today. So instead, many double down, defending the very system that's hurting them, because the alternative, accepting the loss, feels worse than the ongoing harm. This is a huge part of why just leave is such useless advice to give someone stuck in a manipulative relationship or high-control group. The exit isn't blocked by love or loyalty alone. It's blocked by math the brain refuses to do honestly. By November of 1978, over 900 members of the People's Temple, a group that had begun in the United States as a seemingly progressive religious community, were living in an isolated agricultural commune in the jungles of Guyana, a compound its own members had named Jonestown, after its leader, Jim Jones. Every technique in this video was present, layered, and industrialized. Jones love-bombed new members with an intoxicating vision of racial equality and community at a time when that message resonated deeply. He isolated the congregation geographically, first within the US, then completely, by relocating the entire group to a remote jungle compound thousands of miles from family, media, or outside contact. He gaslit members about the outside world, telling them repeatedly that hostile forces were coming to destroy them. He used intermittent reinforcement, public praise for loyalty, public humiliation for doubt, to keep followers desperately chasing his approval. And he demanded sunk-cost devotion. Members had surrendered their homes, savings, passports, and contact with relatives to be there. Walking away meant admitting all of it had been for nothing. On November 18, 1978, following the murder of visiting U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan and members of his delegation at a nearby airstrip, Jones directed the community to drink a cyanide-laced beverage in what he framed, after years of loyalty conditioning, as a final, unifying act. Over 900 people died that day, more than 300 of them children. It remains the largest single loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act prior to September 11, 2001. The chilling part isn't that the followers were unusually gullible people. Researchers who've studied People's Temple membership found a community full of teachers, nurses, and idealists, people who joined for community and justice, not delusion. The techniques worked precisely because they don't require a victim to be foolish. They require a victim to be human. Every technique in this video works the same way, not by overpowering your judgment all at once, but by bending it one small degree at a time, until you can no longer tell where your own thinking ends and someone else's begins. The most unsettling truth in psychology isn't that manipulation exists. It's that the same 12 moves, in the right hands, can turn a stranger into a follower and a follower into a statistic. If the Jonestown ending hit you as hard as it hit us to write, you need to see how deceive used almost this exact playbook in 2019. Inside a suburban self-help seminar, not a jungle. Drop a comment. Which technique have you spotted in real life? Love bombing, gaslighting, or something else? And hey, if this kind of deep dive is your thing, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel keep making these.